So let's start by defining emotional intelligence so that we're all on the same page. And I'm going to share two definitions here. And the first one is from Daniel Goleman. He says that emotional intelligence is the capacity for recognizing our own feelings and those of others, for motivating ourselves, and for managing emotions well in our relationships. And a simple definition that I've heard myself using over and over in my 20 years as a leadership consultant is that EI is the ability to manage your emotions intelligently, and it's the ability to skillfully integrate logic and emotion. EQ is important because humans are primarily emotional. The basis on which we make sense of our world and the way in which we make decisions is overwhelmingly emotional. We know this from the neuroscience research and looking at the way our brains are wired. And this is an important understanding because in our modern day workplace, we tend to think of ourselves as rational beings. People say things like, leave your emotions out of it, or don't get emotional. This assumption about being rational can trip us up in our understanding of people, our ability to deal with conflict and challenges, and our effectiveness as a leader. The daily challenge of dealing effectively with humans and emotions is critical to our understanding of other human beings because our brains are hardwired to give emotions the upper hand. So team emotional intelligence is more complicated than individual emotional intelligence because teams interact at more levels. They're not just interacting with each other, they're interacting with other groups in the organisation along with customers, suppliers and other stakeholders. So there's 3 levels of EI competence needed in a team. At the individual level, the team and peer-to-peer level, and then the group-to-group or cross-boundary level, which is the way your team interacts with other teams or groups. So let's have a look now at how to build EI in your team. And we're going to look at some suggested norms from Druskett and Wolf's research. So things you can do at the individual level, the team level, and the cross-boundary level. You need to take a building block approach when you commence this process, this EI journey. Every team has its existing norms and you're going to change some of those patterns. In some cases, you're going to disrupt them and replace them or modify them. And patterns change in steps. And the idea is that you build these norms over time. Getting buy-in from your team is really important. As we work through the norms, make a note of the easy wins that you could apply straight away and the things that you might do after you've got some foundations in place. So we'll start with the norms required to build awareness of emotions in your team. And there are 5 of these across the individual, team and cross-boundary levels. They are interpersonal understanding, perspective taking, team self-evaluation, seeking feedback, and organisational understanding. So we'll take a look at each of these in a bit more detail so you know what to do to create the conditions that will build these norms in your team. So to build interpersonal understanding, take time to get to know each other. Now many teams use tools like the Myers-Briggs type indicator, the DISC model or strengths inventories to do this. People really like to learn about themselves and others, so this can be a fun thing to do with your team. Another suggestion is to check in at the beginning of each meeting. So ask, how is everyone feeling? And don't just settle for the words good or fine. Ask for a proper feeling word to help build their emotional literacy. Many people struggle to identify emotions, and this will help them with this. You're building that literacy of emotions. Now, you've heard me say already today how important this awareness of emotions is. Assume that undesirable behaviour takes place for a reason and find out what that reason is. Ask effective questions and listen, and avoid negative attributions. And tell your teammates what you're thinking and how you're feeling. Don't be one of those leaders who is hard to read or doesn't share anything about themselves. Now, obviously you need some boundaries here. I'm not suggesting oversharing, but you won't get trust if they can't read you or are not sure about what you're thinking and feeling. And encourage self-reflection in your team so that people are thinking about progress against goals, perhaps their wins of the day or week, setbacks, and things they appreciate for themselves and about others. Self-reflection is an important aspect of learning, growth, and building resilience. To build the norm of perspective taking, ask if everyone agrees with the decision and why they do. Ask quiet members what they think. So draw them out if they're not speaking up, or perhaps if they're just going along with things. Question or reality check decisions that come too quickly. Our first thoughts are not always our best thoughts. So ask, have we thought this through? Appoint a devil's advocate. Some teams use Edward de Bono's 6 thinking hats in their meetings to generate perspectives, including the black hat, which is that what might go wrong or what have we missed type of thinking. And I'll quickly share an activity that I've used with teams to build this norm of perspective taking. And this is for when there's differing views and tension building and people are wedded to their perspective. So the activity is to get people to adopt and advocate for another person's perspective as if it was their own, to see if they get any mindset shift or insight from doing so and stepping into someone else's shoes or views. It's been really interesting to do this with some of the teams that I've worked with and then to see the new understandings that emerge from doing that. So we're moving now to the group norms that create awareness of emotions. And team self-evaluation is the first one of these. So to build this, schedule time to examine and review team effectiveness. Ask, how are we going? What's working well? What's not? What do our results tell us? And be honest with yourselves about that. Create measurable objectives and then make sure you measure them. These can be task-related measures and morale measures too. Acknowledge and discuss group moods. Some teams use online apps or calendars like Nico Nico to do this. They do this as an easy and quick way to help quantify the well-being, morale and motivation in the team. They're 3 things that are quite difficult to measure usually, so use the technology that's available to help you do that. Communicate your sense of what is transpiring in the team. So what are you pleased about and what could be improved? And permission or allow team members to speak up in a safe way, perhaps to call a process check if something is going off track or on a tangent. So a team member might say, can I just call a process check? Is this the most effective use of our time right now? So that's a way of the team self-evaluating. The second norm to build self-awareness, to build awareness is seeking feedback. And to build this, a suggestion is to encourage team members to invite comments on their work from relevant others, so opening themselves up to feedback. And ask your customers, these could be internal customers or external customers, how are you doing? Are their expectations being met? Many organisations use these types of surveys to get that sort of feedback. Another suggestion is that you can benchmark your processes if you can, so that you've got an independent comparison to measure against. Not everyone can do that, but if you can, it's a good way of getting feedback. Now we'll have a look at a cross-boundary norm that creates awareness of emotions, and this is organisational understanding. To build this, find out the concerns and needs of others in the organisation. So talk to the other groups that you interact with and are dependent on. What do they need from you? What's working well and what's not? So often these conversations are not had, and we end up with silos, turf wars and resentment, where groups in the same organisation wanting to achieve the same goals criticise each other indirectly and work against each other. And consider who can influence a team's ability to accomplish its goals, so identify these key stakeholders. And be aware of the culture and politics in the organisation. You have to be able to read the environment you operate in and check whether proposed team strategies and actions are in or out of alignment with the organisational culture or politics or strategies. So these are the 5 EI norms that build awareness of emotions that you can set up over time in your team. So let's have a look now at the 6 norms that will help you manage